Hello, everyone. This is Superintendent of Schools, Monica Merritt. The pandemic is changing how we operate in K-12 education, but I want to assure you that we have been working hard to develop plans that will allow us to quickly and safely respond to whatever return-to-school model we follow in the fall. As we have all learned through this pandemic, information is fluid and always subject to change. What we know right now is that Governor Whitmer said that schools across Michigan will reopen for in-person learning this fall. The governor reiterated that safety is at the forefront of the planning for this return to school, and that very clear guidance of expectations will be essential for students and families in our school communities. Please understand that our goal is to have all of our students back in fall in a full face-to-face learning environment with appropriate safety accommodations. Since that may not be possible, we are also preparing for a fully virtual model and a blended plan that would have students attend school for a portion of the week and participate in virtual learning on the days they are not in school. As you may know, the district formed a reentry task force last month to begin planning for the 2020-2021 school year. The committee broke into more than a dozen subcommittees, and each one was asked to study all of the factors that go into opening schools in the fall. Each subcommittee was responsible for developing plans for the three models of delivering education to P-CCS K-12 students during the 2020-2021 academic school year. Again, they are traditional face-to-face in-school model, a hybrid model that includes face-to-face and remote virtual learning, and an all-remote model with full virtual learning. Regardless of which scenario is implemented in the fall, a virtual academy will be an option for some families as a part of our current plan. Future virtual learning will look very different from the emergency learning that we had this past spring, and we are excited for the possibilities this gives our students and families who might not yet be ready for an in-person experience. We will continue to provide more information to you as details are confirmed. So now, let's hear from the people who have been working tirelessly on this plan, our outstanding P-CCS team.
Beth Rail, Chair of the Student Schedules and Academic Expectations Subcommittee.
The Student Schedules and Academic Expectations Subcommittee is committed to ensuring that each and every student has the highest quality experience possible, no matter which of the three scenarios we return to in the fall. As we looked at these schedules, especially the combination schedule, we tried to look at how to best support students while also giving families a set schedule that didn't rotate and allowed for the best opportunity for them to seamlessly transition into the virtual environment, which would be built on a solid, robust platform and with solid, robust virtual curriculum and instructional activities. In the area of academic expectations, we really need to ask ourselves these questions. What will academic expectations be for our students, and how will progress be measured? How will student learning be best served when they are not in school if they are in a virtual environment? As we look at these ideas and suggestions that we're putting forth to you, one of the things we want to do is ensure that our curriculum includes current grade level academic standards and still following those standards, but also looking at ways to fill the gaps for learning that may have been missed during the COVID-19 shutdown. We also need to ensure that students have the instructional technology and the materials necessary to connect and participate remotely at any time that they have to seamlessly transition into a virtual environment. All students will receive grade-level content with necessary accommodations and scaffolds built in to help ensure that they connect to and are able to fully participate in learning. To do this, we'll be doing a lot of work around professional development related to differentiated instruction and universal design for learning, as well as helping our staff members learn how to seamlessly and effectively work in an online environment. In addition to the work that's done as we focused on student schedules and academic expectations, this subcommittee also looked at a variety of important action items that would take place. For example, we looked at it through the lens of how do we really ensure we have solid social emotional learning programming put in place for our young people? What does it look like for early childhood and post-secondary? What types of intervention and assessment planning do we need to do? How do we assess and intentionally design the instructional spaces on site to maximize learning? How do we align our technology and access with intermittent attendance for some or all students? We also looked at such areas as interventions, supports for students who have additional needs, such as English learners, students with IEPs, students with 504 plans. We looked at creating and implementing assessment plans that follow all CDC and state guidelines.
Dr. Liz Vartanian-Gibbs, chair of the Human Resources Subcommittee.
The Human Resources Committee is reviewing guidelines from LARA to think about ways that we can bring back our children in the early childhood program as well as the extended day program. We are also looking at different ways that all employees will return to work and how they will be working with our students in face-to-face instruction or in a blended learning environment. One of the great aspects of our committee is the feedback that we are receiving from our employees as we implement our reentry to our schools. Using their feedback will help assure that all employees are ready to return to work. Our task force is committed to protecting educators, support staff, students, and their families so we can be together once again.
Kathy Edsett, chair of the While at School Subcommittee.
Our health committee plan is essentially 3 steps. It's going to be education, implementation, and evaluation. Education of the reason why we are implementing these steps to stay healthy in school. Education about how to stay healthy. A lot of education for staff and students on how to do proper hand washing, how to keep your hands off your face, how to cover your cough and your sneeze. Those little things, those basic infection control measures that have been known for centuries to be effective, as well as how do we put masks on? What do we have to do to take the masks off? What do we do to ensure that our immediate surroundings are safe and healthy? And again, education for parents on how to assess your child before coming to school as to following the screening guidelines and that they're safe and healthy. You know, the big thing is that you want to stay home if you're sick. And then when you come to school, employ those healthy guidelines to stay healthy. In terms of implementation, we've provided the recommendations, which essentially come down to face coverings and physical distance and all those other things that kind of are incorporated among that. And then the third thing, evaluating our preventive strategies and looking to see what what ongoing research is proving to be more effective. You know, there may be some things we may need to do more and some things it might be okay to remove. This will be a challenge for everyone at school. Knowing how to protect yourself is a big step in staying healthy. Working together, we can help each other to stay healthy and stay in school.
Rich Welch, chair of the Custodial and Maintenance Subcommittee.
Our group has come full circle, and we will be training custodial staff on what needs to be accomplished every single night. We will be also training them on the Clorox 360 machine that we will be sanitizing every room in the building every single night. We will be installing hand sanitizers in every building. We will begin our summer cleaning over the next couple weeks, where we will be stripping and waxing floors. We will also be adding a Clorox 360 to every building. We will create a PSA for the Clorox 360 to explain what it does and how it works. The Clorox 360 machines are a new platform. It's an electrostatic spray that you can go into a classroom and spray the classroom in about 5 minutes. We will be looking at purchasing masks for every staff member. We'll be working with food service, also to install stickers on floors, sidewalks to help with social distancing and traffic flow. Our subcommittee is looking at a blended learning plan to alternate days of students. With that, we will be setting desks 6 feet apart. Social distancing will be put in every classroom. Regardless of the learning model that is selected, the Custodial and Maintenance Subcommittee will work relentlessly to ensure a sanitized, clean, safe environment for all staff and students.
Tim Krasinski.
The main focus of our subcommittee was to ensure that communication between the contractors in the district was thorough and complete. In making sure that the contractors work safely in our district, we continue to follow up with them on a daily basis, make sure they're following all their specific protocol as dictated in the business plan. We are prioritizing all teaching and learning scheduling over construction and maintenance activities. The Construction and Maintenance Subcommittee is committed to maintaining a safe environment for our staff and students. We also want to return that safe environment to our contractors. We will continue to communicate as effectively as possible and make sure that information flows appropriately.
Debbie Piez, Chair of the Transportation Subcommittee.
The Transportation Subcommittee has worked on several different challenges of how to bring kids safely to school. Some of the issues discussed are as follows. The cleaning and disinfecting front, they're going to clean and disinfect those during the gap between the arrival time to school in the morning and the dismissal time in the afternoon. There's about a 3-hour gap. And then they'll be able to, with a Clorox 360 machine, do the mist of the interior of the bus and be able to disinfect throughout the day, not between routes, but between the morning and afternoon sessions. And finally, how to protect the driver as well. So they, as a firm, have devised a shield that they're going to be wearing, probably masks and shields for some, just shields for others. But having any kind of compartment that compartmentalizes the driver away from the students is not a recommendation that they're going to move forward with. We'll be as safe as we can. We'll recommend that everyone wear masks on the bus or some kind of cloth face covering in order to protect the kids around them.
Kristen Hennessy, Chair of the Nutrition Subcommittee.
In the state of Michigan, as part of the funding for the schools, we have to provide lunch service. So keeping that in mind with any plan that we do, we had to make sure that we had it available so that it could be accessible for all students. So in looking at that, we had to look at how we were going to get the food safely to the kids, following CDC guidelines and also our local health department. And at all 3 levels, we're looking at everything being packaged. For safety and moving forward with this virus, we need to make sure that everything is packaged and that there's no cross-contamination and that students can open the package and be safe. That even means having silverware that's all packaged together with a napkin. Elementary, whether we're face-to-face or blended, we're going to have to look at where meals are served. That could potentially, our recommendation is that smaller children, K through 3, would be staggered and eating in a lunchroom with social distancing involved. That way, they're not carrying a tray too far, and also it minimizes mess, and it's definitely more controllable. And then in the elementaries, we're also looking at 4th and 5th eating in their classrooms, taking the food to them. They're much older, and the ability to have them be more conscious of their desk and those around them would come into play. At the middle school, we are also looking at staggered times, longer lunch period potentially, students coming down and being served and eating in alternative locations, whether that's back in a room or in the cafeteria, but knowing that we have to keep the social distancing in place and keeping it safe for the kids. In looking at the park, we're looking at potentially having it where in your 4th hour, it's an extended time, but there's a staggered schedule and the students would come down in the building they're in 4th hour, they would come down to eat. We're also simplifying the menu a little bit, recognizing that having these food court concepts, it does put people closer together. So we're looking at how we can utilize space a little bit better to keep distancing and plus have it so that students have the ability to still have some selection, but they're not as tight as they usually are. Another part that we're looking at is at the high school is our current menu, NutriSlice, has an option where students can pre-order. So what they would do is we'd have kiosks set up or locations where I would order in the morning and they'd come to that location to pick it up, which would be quicker and easier. In looking at blended, we have to also consider that on days that students won't be in school, per the law, we still need to make sure that meals are supplied. So we're looking at different options of that where parents could order through their youngest child's school meals to pick up to cover the days that the students would not be in the actual building, but also have meals that they could have at home. No matter what learning model we go with, the nutrition subcommittee will be ready to do what we need to do to make sure that nutrition is available to all of our students and the accessibility of meals is ready to go in the fall.
Hal Hurd, chair of the extracurricular activities subcommittee.
So as a subcommittee, our main focus was to make sure that our students have a safe environment to participate in whether it's athletics or activities. Our subcommittee was made up of coaches, also activity directors, middle school representatives that either coach or teach, also administrators from the elementary level. Our committee looked at documents from the National Federation of High School Athletics and also the Michigan High School Athletic Association documents to start preparing for reentry into our athletics and our activities programs here at Plymouth Canton Community Schools. We looked at the 3 phases that they proposed and also added some things that would ensure that each one of our students are safe and that we're able to host them in a facility that is clean and that is able for them to participate in whatever activity they're doing, whether it be athletics or a club. Phase 2, which we are in now, making sure that we are in a space that we can host at least 100 students. Students will social distance themselves accordingly. Also, coaches and athletic directors will make sure that screening checks are happening as well as hydration stations are provided for all student athletes. With our clubs and activities, we're looking at hosting those in large spaces and virtually during phase 2. As we move into phase 3, we'll be adding on spectators, along with making sure that we are adhering to social distancing guidelines and making sure that our facilities are clean for our students. Participation in athletics and activities is a great outlet for students and is great for their social and emotional well-being. And we look forward to making sure that it's done in a safe environment for all students.
Nick Brandon, chair of the Communications Subcommittee. The Communications Subcommittee was brought together with a really diverse group of stakeholders, with district staff, and very importantly, representatives from the district's parent councils. And that was extremely valuable to make sure that we were consistently getting feedback from the parent and family perspective so that our team can best serve students when we look at return in the fall. One of the biggest takeaways from the group really focused on the methods of communication that we have as a district. We did a full analysis of all of our major communication methods and compared them against these 3 options to ensure that we're using the best methods for each option to best message what we need to message to our families and our community. The beauty of the communications subcommittee was we got so much robust feedback from the various stakeholders in our group to really strengthen our ability to make decisions on which communication outlets would be the best fit for these scenarios. And so we enter the 2020-21 school year with a really solid plan, making sure that we're very strategic and very thoughtful about what methods we use for which audience and for which situation. The other outcome is making sure that we utilize some of the more modern aspects of our team. Things like our LPT3 podcast really came through as a really important way to capture quick and easy to digest audio content. So that'll continue to be a key part of the communications plan for reentry in the fall. We want to make sure that we're complete but concise. And being complete and concise are both really key goals that came from the work of this subcommittee. Lastly, the Communications Subcommittee knows that we need to do a fair amount of taking our community to school. There's going to be a lot of education for us as a team, especially when you look at robust methods of virtual learning and some of the various virtual learning aspects that might be part of a combination model. We know that there will be work in terms of educating our community, just of simple things like terminology and acronyms and some of these things that are familiar to us as educators, but might not be that familiar to our community. We'll do this by arming some of our frontline district communicators, that being our building secretaries and other communicators who regularly work with members of our community. We'll be arming them with a handbook to make sure that they're aware of our plans and what they need to best communicate when they have these direct interactions with members of our community. The Communications Subcommittee remains committed in all the work that we will do to prepare for the 2020-21 school year to ensure access, to ensure really easy to understand messages, and to ensure that these messages are delivered in ways that meet the community's needs at all times in all ways.
So as you can see, there are many details involved in each scenario, and we have done our best to prepare for each so that we can move swiftly once the official order is given. Please remember that these plans are general at this time because we know much can happen between today and September 8th. I am confident that the P-CCS community will respond and conquer this challenge because we are P-CCS strong.